scene is set for Perth by night. Rafat is in the trench with two of the newer kindred in the city. Stoneheart's just recently stepped out. He'll be back shortly. He thinks he's got a phone call to take. Doesn't know exactly how long it'll take. Rafat is sitting with two others. Perhaps others will join. He is with Charles McGowan, who he's previously met once, and Marcus Creel, a Bruja, who he's only met for the first time tonight. Still doesn't know what to make of him. He'll, of course, there'll be menus there. He's going to have things on the cheap at the moment because people need to unwind more than normal. It's $50 for a drink, whether it be alcoholic or non-alcoholic. And that's a drink tailored towards their taste, shall we say. So, Mr. Creel, what brings you to Perth?
Well, nothing incredibly, how should I put it, great and dire needs. Just another city on a long list of cities.
Is he doing anything to cover his lower half of his face?
Talking like this, if you can see them, you can see them.
Yeah, we've got acute senses in all aspects. If you want me to roll, I will. But probably going to know something. Do you want a drink or do you want to put those away?
I'm not quite certain I understand what you mean, good sir.
Teeth. You look thirsty.
Vagaries of life, Mr. Dutter. Those things don't go away.
Ah.
My sire tried.
Right, that's definitely going to be awkward for you, especially when you're the new face in the city and people don't know about it.
I'm a Bruja. People assume that it's just because I'm slightly irritated.
Just thought you were hungry.
No, just ate.
Very good. You, of course, met Mr. Stoneheart.
Yeah, I made my introductions to the Archon and Mr. Stoneheart already. He seemed intent on having my supporters.
Oh no, trust me, if Stoneheart, your new face, if Stoneheart or somebody else hadn't vouched for you, you weren't going to get through that door. Well, not without making something out of the door that wouldn't quite fit into the door frame.
This is the second time I've been here.
Ah, yes, he did say last night that he was having a few gather. He got you pretty fresh off the boat, unless I just haven't seen you around.
Very fresh off. I made my introductions yesterday, I think.
Settling in, good. Is there anything you're looking for in the city? Perhaps I might be able to point you in the direction of someone you might... Well, everyone's got their own particular needs and motivations.
Well, I did get some phone numbers to make my introductions to some. I think the Torpedo Master at Arms was on that list. And
yes.
was also kind enough to point me into that direction.
If the Mr. Salvador, if you have any equipment gets damaged in the line of duty towards the Quarter Clan, he's apparently very kindly once made an offer to someone in some very high position, and now he's he's saddled with certain duties for quite some time.
Well, I'm I'm under the impression that I might be lending him a hand, so to speak.
Ah, interesting. Do you have anything set up on the kind side yet? In case people start asking questions.
No, no, nothing particular. I usually. Esti, would you care to
Yeah.
explain me that kind?
You made a roll to try and get a read on his emotions. He
Yep.
made a manipulation or charisma subterfuge check to hide his emotions because he might be a very guarded individual and he doesn't know us. He got 3 successes, you got 3 successes. He is the
Okay.
defender, so he wins.
Sorry.
So you're finding him a bit hard to get a beat on.
Okay. Sorry for that.
No worries.
But yes, he's you were saying about yourself.
I usually just teach the kind some Tai Chi to make certain I have a few bucks to throw at someone for a little flat.
I'm not particularly familiar with that exact martial art. Is it one of the more spiritual, or is it a bit more focused on pragmatic material matters?
Tai Chi Chuan depends on how you usually considered internal,
Oh,
more spiritual, meditative moment.
you might enjoy having some conversations with a coterie mate of mine, Leon Harris. He's a very spiritual man. Now, for some unusual insights, I don't know if he's particularly involved with martial arts, but he's a great student of all philosophies from across the world. He uses his the gifts of the blood and the longevity it gives to make sure that he's enriching himself spiritually, as well as, of course, lending aid. He was one of us who was here at the conquering of the city. He's very observant, always useful. You have to identify a target, and when a anarch is hiding amongst the throngs of the kind, being able to spot one out is very useful.
True enough. No, I usually, well, the Tai Chi teaching is just to keep yourself nimble and in touch with the units. Also, since it's slow and doesn't involve too much damage to anyone, it's a very calm thing to do with humans.
I suppose. But, suits you. I, of course, have to maintain my own affairs. We almost have our reasons, but it seems like a perfectly reasonable way, especially if it helps yourself. And if they're willing to part with a bit of resources for the tutelage from someone who's probably got a lot more experience than they'd expect under their belt. Nice mutually beneficial arrangement.
It's just, I find it keeps people, tends to calm an area down a bit. And while the Primogen to be was very kind to suggest that he could help set me up, I usually prefer to just go to a park. A public park is a public meeting, and in most countries that's acceptable use of a public space. 4 or 5 people doing some moving meditation.
True. And just my own curiosity here, are you thinking of getting involved in the court in any way, or are you just looking for to be a very respectable but quiet member of our community? Which is alright too.
I've found that people tend to be push towards the court, but I'll do my best not to get too involved in that side. I'll have some doing with mastering myself before I can start mastering anything outside.
Seems like a notion. I'm suppose, well, given my clan, similar, different path, same goal. Mastering yourself is very necessary when you're in the clan Tremere. There's a lot of challenges, but I do find it rewarding. And, well, unfortunately, I do might leave my nights a little bit shorter someday, but I like to test myself in combat against the enemy, whether they be, well, haven't too much experience against the Sabbat, but the Anarchs here had a few unusual tricks up their sleeves.
Well, I like the, how shall I put it, the option of, how do I put it? Well, you mentioned the court. Most people get into the courtly affairs such as they are because they want to have domain or influence in this or that human organization, or they feel that they have this must of having so and so large a domain so they can provide themselves with blood. I usually found myself quite able to subsist on the unclaimed territories.
Drakes can subsist for a time, but we've all different stages. However, I've always found eventually it grows tiresome having to compete, tracking some particular prey for an hour or two, only to have someone else get involved at times. It can be difficult, or that all the easy pickings are gone.
Well, I consider it a part of training for myself. When I was still breathing, I tried to be best at being human. Now, I train to be best at being what I am.
It's also good to have domain for your own protection as well as hunting, just the boundary set up. The tradition of domain in case things get difficult. People who don't have a stake in the domain will have to be more respectful, potentially, and, well, it doesn't have any kind of a mystical barrier to stop someone from becoming violent. It does mean that they will have to think twice because the repercussions will be far more severe.
Well, well, if somebody wants a piece of this city, I'm certainly not going to. Well, barring the politics, I'm not one of those who will make a big fuss about this or that. There are many punks in this city. There are many people who will give me a few dimes for having a small dance, so to speak. So why would I worry about this or that punk or the luck of it? The more attached I come to earthly things, the more likely I am to take such things personally.
You will definitely get on with Mr. Harris. But I understand if it suits you. But there are definitely advantages. But if you're in no rush, that's fine. I'm sure even if you're not necessarily actively getting involved, you'll hopefully sooner or later events will line up for you that they'll no doubt be forced to give you some kind of reward. Whether that's domain, so you can tell other people to leave you alone if you want some quiet solace, or something else. There are other types of reward.
Well, I found that I do have to occasionally answer the question of, can't you teach anything else but the Tai Chi? Usually the answer is yes, yes, I can. But for me to bother even finding out if a person is something to use my time on to get personally invested in, just for that, finding that out, I'm going to charge a major room. That means not too many people can be bothered me in further.
Well, if you're looking for a quiet future of contemplation, good luck to you. I think the city is not the worst, but sooner or later the previous inhabitants will possibly look to reclaim what they no doubt see as theirs. And I hope you'll be giving a break from the relaxation and put your well-honed skills to use on that day. But until then, by all means, relax and look inward.
We are too much self-study leads to self-centrism. So, small bouts of actually recognizing there's a world around you isn't too bad either. Just as long as you have some choice, always preferred it. So, who is this gentleman? I don't think I've met him.
Charles McGowan, a very young member of the court, relatively recently released by their sire, a member of Clan Toreador, and a very observant young kindred, as I understand it.
Like
Quiet, pick up all sorts of things that way.
when you guys realize that he was there all the time, he just smiles and
Oh, they knew.
they don't know, like he was there, but like when you just remember him, he's there. Like he just smiles and nods to Marcus. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I'm Charles McCullen, Clan Toreador.
Good to meet you too.
Quiet, young kindred. Charles is really new to the city, as I said. You can speak as much as you'd like.
Welcome to our fair city, Perth. It's as much as I have seen the city, we will have good court in here, and I think that we will have good time together in time in Perth.
That's one way of going about things, I guess. I do wonder what it tells of a person. Do you prefer to be all quiet?
I am a fledgling. I only speak when I'm spoken to.
Fortunately, one of the things you're going to have to learn is, although that can be admirable when different things are going on, you might stay a fledgling for a very long time if you rigidly hold to that. You don't have to be too strict about things unless the conversation turns tense here. It's not an Elysium. We can talk about that, but this is a place for people to relax a little bit. Let the hair down.
Thank you for being kind, but I am I respect the traditions and I respect my elders. I respect people who's older than me, and I also respect the laws of the camera. Like I don't say that we are breaking it. I'm just I don't have any knowledge or things that you already don't know, and I don't want to bother anyone by just speaking emptiness. So sorry for that. But if you ask me any questions, I will be glad to answer it.
Where did you come from before you came to Perth?
I have come from New York, and I am the child of Mina. She is not really famous, but she is known in America. Okay, I'm out of character. I'm going to roll another perception empathy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's awkward silence, so he couldn't hold himself to not understand the character. So yeah, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 successes to looking at your father and trying to understand like what he meant.
He's trying to get you to talk about yourself a
Okay.
little bit more. He's trying to get you to, because you're basically just being a lump in the room who's quiet, and then when he's answering very short. He's just trying to get you like, because the last time you were here, you were quiet, but he's putting that down to you had 2 ancilla with you of your clan, you're being quiet, and now he's telling you stuff more, and you're going like, okay, I came from this place, my sire was this. She's not really known, but she is a person. It's like, come on. He's trying to get you to loosen up a little bit. He's not expecting you to be like dancing at the tables or anything. But come on, you're not even here right now. You don't have to, he's kind of like, you might be picking up as like, is he thinking, is he worried that I'm trying to like lure some big clan secrets or some campaign things that the current Torid or Primogen is just like, he's like, come on, I'm not he's not the big bad Tremere. Why can't people just relax about him?
What do you think about the Purser? I think it's a very fair city, and I am really glad that we have taken over from the Anarchs. I haven't been in the war, but I am glad that some of our kindred has taken the city from the Anarchs. So I would like to hear war stories, or what is your perception of Perth?
I could tell you a few things. What have people got up to? First is, well, it's different from to start off, but it's got some bad memories. But I'm so glad we came here. The Anarchs causing problems. There was a lot of discreet scouting going on for some time. Some infiltrators sent in to find out, but before any of the war coteries, Lion's Mane, Trundling One, Bastion Forsters, and there's a few less prestigious ones showed up. Well, we had to gather our information properly. We took out some of the ones who were in, let's say, the high society ones, the ones who, maybe not necessarily the ones that have the biggest bank accounts, but the ones who can pull a few strings of a kind to loosen up funds for bribes for the cops, getting returned the other way, getting munitions, arms through customs, things like that, so they couldn't get reinforcements in, and to organize their resistance. The Baron was Baron Jimmy, as he'd like to be called, James Blaney. He was taken out at the end, or near the end anyway. It took quite a while for the story, over several nights. The Camarilla forces, he was a Ventru, so yeah, Ventru, whatever they say about him, they're tough. But once his power base started to crumble with some of his key lieutenants figures taken out, wasn't going easy for him. But it was the hand of my clan, Elder Laurent Lavoisier, Antoine Laurent de Lavoisier. He found him. He hasn't exactly told me all the details, but I was there when he brought him, stake for the Archon, and he was tried on the spot, denounced for all his crimes against the Camarilla, and he was executed in front of the representatives of all the clans involved in taking the city. It was a very painful death that was given to him. I think he might have found if not a lesser punishment, a less painful death if he just handed himself over when his lieutenants started falling. Once he was gone, and the Anarchs had heard how painful a punishment he had suffered, the last resistance just crumbled around that point. Salvador, the arms master, he was the one who took out the Reeve. Marshal Anris. The Reeves are, it's like a shit Anarch version of a sheriff. I mean, come on, Anarch's trying to have somebody doing that. What I understand is that he gathered together his ghouls and got his weapons together. He's got some pretty nice toys. He lost a lot of ghouls that day.
He has lost 8 of them.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Andres had some nasty tricks. I don't know all the details, but I've heard that he had some stuff prepared. He used some powers of the blood to prepare something nasty. But eventually, when the two came face to face, was in Harrison Island. Both of them brought their ghouls, well, as they had. A lot of casualties on both sides. But as the dawn approached, it was Salvador who was still alive. Trundling wombats. They got the sweeper. Kind of like a scourge, but less killing of people.
When you have said Trundling Wombats, I have remembered the Alfred. I heard about him that he has been killed someone on the train when the sun rising. I have heard this story from, I don't remember.
To be fair, it was Lady Grace Martin, your one of the prominent figures of your clan. I wouldn't be surprised if she was the one getting the Primogen seat, but it was her who uncovered where some of the havens were. And yeah, for the benefit of, he looks towards Marcus, Alfred Frederick von Oswald, who let's not speak of what happened to him more recent nights. I prefer to remember him back then. It was his finest hour. The trundling wombats and himself managed to finally corner the sweeper. And as the sweeper tried to flee the city, they fought on top of a train. They clashed blades, and it wasn't a blade that killed the sweeper, it was the determination of Van Arswold, forcing him to stay in the sunlight while the two of them burned, but that Alfred was able to outlast him. He was able to hold the beast in check. He was able to take the pain. That's when he became an Ancilla. Yeah, they were given Cannington after that, the Trundling Wombats. It was some of the territory, a lot of it held by the sweeper, some by the Baron. And of course the Lion's Mane. We were tasked with one of the more difficult to locate quarries. Sarah Lynch and Nosferatu. She was the coyote. She'd get defectors out of Camarilla cities, bring them to Perth. Very used to avoiding trackers. She was the last one of with a significant title to be taken down. The Malkavian Hand, James Pierce, managed to track down some information, handed on to Leon, who I mentioned earlier, and it was 2 weeks of running through sewers, avoiding booby traps, keeping up the hunt, just pressing and pushing and not relenting. But we just kept up the pressure, sniper rounds. We destroyed a lot of them, unfortunately. Even softening her up. She wasn't the tough part. Tracking her was a bitch, but Jeremy Hammond was we had 2 Bruges Decoder at one stage. Stonehearts only survived. Jeremy got taken out by some pretty nasty traps she had. Anyway, then there's the enforcers. They had set up a little warlord, a gangrel called Emma Ryan. She actually managed to be able to go toe to toe with the Archon in the middle of one of the biggest fights, but she fled. The enforcers managed to track her down. Not the biggest coterie, but they had a gangrel of their own. They used claws, guns, knives, whatever they could. They finished her off. So there are some of the highlights. We lost people a lot more who weren't into big fights. They just got taken out. We miss Jeremy. And some of the people who were there haven't survived, especially with the recent losses. Freeman, Ventru was a member of the coterie. He was always able to get information out of people, whether it be dominate or he just had a way of being able to talk to especially those involved in less legitimate circles. But he'd get the information. If that was what was needed, he did his part and find the target. Valiente would take him out, or at least soften him up with a few sniper rounds. But the city was won, and we've been rebuilding. We have some fine new people such as yourselves helping, and the court is coming together.
Like Charles has listened this story very he listened it and like you probably will see that he is kind of happy that he heard this good stories, more stories. Um, I have heard that we lost so many good people in the fights.
It's good to remember so that there won't be forgotten the sacrifices of those who helped take the city, but also remember we might have gotten the big names, but some of the smaller fry got out. And they know the city. And if the anarchs come back, there's going to be some with them. They'll know the streets. I'd be surprised if they didn't have one or two little caches of weapons and equipment they hadn't touched when they were defending the city. But when they come back in, even just a nice little spot to sleep for the night, they'll be the ones that are the problem. Because they'll show the others where the best places are to hunt without being spotted.
Um, you probably know better than me, but sometimes Kindred tend to hide himself in the crowd. They don't. They're not interested in money. They're not interested in lots of things, so it's will be hard to find them. Maybe we have taken lots of them, but maybe we missed some powerful aloners. If we heard anything about them, please have my number, and I would like to be counted with that team who will be fight with them.
I'll let you know, we found one of them recently. Somebody, they were somebody who was a ghoul. One of the anarchs was identified. We went in, thought they might be never the dead of their sire, their Dometer, had never been confirmed. We went in, tried to track them down. We've tracked about the house. They had turned it into a well-defended little mini fortress. They had started influencing one of the gangs. Their Dometer, apparently before leaving the city, had embraced them. Made a few ghouls, and they had them well equipped. They had some serious enough hardware. Took out the ghouls, keeping the masquerade in mind, of course. Staked them, and, well, now the higher ups are questioning them. They're being questioned by top men. He smiles a little bit, thinking back, a little bit sad as he thinks of the Count.
Charles smiles again.
But next time, if there is a next time, and I imagine there's more than one or two of them who were knocked into torpor. Was your little wake up? If I hear about any, I might just give you a call.
And if you're after more information about the person that who is running the school, if you let me touch their belongings, then I will. It can be helpful.
I know that's a discipline known to my blood.
He nods.
I'm very useful. There are other ways, of course, of finding things out.
Charles smiles again. So I have heard that there's a gang growth in the city. I heard that they have left the Camarilla.
Ooh, that'll be 15 or so years now.
Mhm.
Time does go by quickly. Stu Gangrel, the Archon, of course, who you've met. And then there's got a neonate. He's a member of the Enforcers. He bit of a scholar, very quiet. You two might get on. He always has a book handy, always reading them. Anton Volkov is his name.
Oh.
I haven't seen him so much of late. The Enforcers are a bit. They kept to themselves once the fighting died down, with the exception to Count. He was always the odd man of their group, the face.
I have seen the Count once, and he looked like a very different gentleman. I think that we will miss his loss.
He had skills, but we can't change what's already happened.
Yes, we can change what has already happened. I think it won't be tolerated again.
No. Sometimes you're not doing anyone any favors, that kind of thing. But it's no, it's
As I have said so many times before, you probably know better than me that the cannibalism is one of the greatest sins of our society.
yes. There are times when individuals are given a second chance. At times, they can still perform some actions which aid the Camarilla. For example, the Gaki. He is a Nosferatu in the city. He previously was given a pardon several years back, but he did come and help conquer Perth, and I don't believe he repeated.
I know about the Gaki. The Archon told me, and I have know about the Winterhand. It was the first person that I have met in the city. He was.
They're the Gaki still helped take the city, still fought, but it is a shame. Mercy at times is laudable, but when someone repeats their sin, it reminds us why, more often than not, we don't grant a mercy on such crimes.
Charles smiles and says that he was going to say something, but he holds himself. But then that Archon have told me, he just shared a piece of information which it seemed important. He said that he has pardoned them, yes, but he will not care what the prince will do with them.
I doubt he'd stretch himself that far. It makes sense. He might give them a temporary reprieve. The Gaki's still useful. We might have one or two more anarchs pop out of torpor here. The Gaki might be of use there, or if there's a counterattack, fine. But it might be more trouble than it's worth for him if the prince wanted to take a hardline stance, which I completely understand. Taking a hardline stance on such things, we can't, that is the beast takes hold of us all at sometimes. But even then, we have responsibility for what happens. It is certainly, if you frenzy and attack someone of higher station, it doesn't necessarily mean you had intent. If you had frenzy, that is a far worse crime in many ways. However, it doesn't mean that you get a pass on what you did. You can't completely control a beast. None of us can. But it doesn't mean that we get to ignore it. Even if some of us, he looks towards the Bruges room, some of us of different blood have
Hard time.
the beast is closer to the surface, but we all must wrestle with it, and we all must come to terms and take responsibility for what happens when it does, because it doesn't matter what clan you are, it will eventually grip you, and you must try and fight against it, but when it does, you better hope it, whatever toll it takes on you or people around you, isn't something you can't make amends for.
Thank you for enlightening me.
If there ever was a good reason to keep people around you that you trust, to make sure that you don't do anything that you would truly regret while showing off your temper. And one of the reasons why it's well advised to be polite to insiders. You might not get the elder's response, you might get the elder's beast's response to your words.
True enough.
And besides, I think that should apply to when talking to one's youngers too. It's common sense, I think. A little bit of politeness goes a long way. More looking at McGovern than anyone else for those words. Yeah. Yeah. Was from now. You mentioned a lot of coteries. Are those all war coteries that really liberated the city?
They were war coteries. I imagine there's going to be some of the new arrivals, such as yourselves, will no doubt join some of them. But I think perhaps we're probably going to see a few more coteries. It's not just war coteries are built with specific purpose. And I'm not too keen to break up the bonds I've made fighting beside others, but a more balanced social, or well, otherwise political, economic focus on other coteries can be beneficial. Indeed, all the most of the war coteries, and the linesmen in particular, we've been pushing into other areas. Just because we don't have a great big pile of anarchs to fight directly in front of us, doesn't mean we can't cooperate in moving into other areas.
And if you fought with someone back against the wall, so to speak, at least you know their measure a little bit better.
True.
Understandable enough. Something I might even be slightly envious of, if it weren't for the fact that you have to find people to get there. and suffer the losses that come with it.
We're all in time. Anyway, it's not just people in your coterie. After a while, it's there's others. You end up finding people outside your coterie. It helps. Make sure people know you're willing to throw down over something you believe in.
But I'll try and end the discussion if the eldest in the room allows to a slightly lighter concerns.
Oh, of course. And don't be calling me elder. Eldest is one thing, but don't call me elder. I might get in trouble, and you'd get in worse trouble if I allowed it.
I'm a young, poor neonate. I'm allowed to make mistakes.
Don't make too many, or you might have to stay that way. But let's avoid that circumstance.
Yeah. But I did correct myself. The slightly easier, lighter question was what does one do for fun in this?
Everybody's been so busy relaxing and rebuilding. Well, we've come here to talk. Kind of quiet, nice these days, but everyone's buzzing around trying to set up the social order that benefits them and theirs the most. But aside from that, it's a busy city. There's lots of stuff on the kind side if you want to lose yourself in that. On the kindred side, I believe there's some work going towards an Elysium. It actually sounds like it'll be as I said, this isn't an Elysium, but it'll be a very different setup, more of a gentleman's club kind of feel to it, which might be different for yourself. I'd say Leon might know, even though your one things line up a bit differently, he'll definitely know the right people who might be no activities that are more in line with your martial artist kind of type things. But on the kindred side, everyone's been focused on rebuilding and building.
Wow. Well, perhaps I seem to understand that there's going to be a prince, so maybe the coronation will be a time for all of those who have been building. We'll breathe that.
True enough. And the nightly games keep many people occupied, particularly these nights they've had a rest since the fighting, and now they're all throwing it into it. Well, not wild abandon, but certainly a lot of vigor. They've got them well rested.
Well, I gathered as much from my discussion with the likely primogen to be.
Well, we didn't promise you the moon and the stars. One to be quite enough, I hope.
Well, how shall I put it? Usually I don't merit that type of attention from anyone wanting to become the primogen. They are usually very well set up for such things and do not need to ask my opinion.
Oh, well, this is not a city that has been in Camarilla hands for centuries. We do not have a large number of elder present in the city. We do not have a particularly large number of Ancilla. Lots of neonates. It is a city filled with young kindred. There will be Ancilla, maybe there'll be one or two elders floating around the city. Of course, I'm sure some new ones will arrive once things have settled down a bit. But the there'll be Ancilla on the Permanent Council, of course, but there'll also be neonates. You won't get that in many cities, particularly when it's more than one neonate on the Permanent Council.
I gathered as much.
Well, I'm going to be closing up soon. Do any of you want a drink for the road?
Like I said, I didn't know to come in thirsty, so maybe next time.
Of course. But yes, it's nice just to have a quiet night every now and again. We while the war was still going, we set this place up. That's the nickname it acquired, just somewhere away from kine eyes, secure, so we don't have to get stressed out. Or we can just talk. Of course, sometimes the nightly games of business gets involved, but just waffling on every now and again. It's a little pleasure.
I thank you for your time and hospitality, of course.
Welcome.
Charles also rises from his chair and says, "Thank you for your hospitality. Here is my card. If you have to talk that if you ever need me, please call me." And then he goes near Marcus and says the same thing. Then he goes outside a little rashly.
Rafat will slide back, shake it away, and kind of nod to himself. Seeing there's no one obfuscated there, open the door, let them get to the containers to contain their weapons. Good night, gentlemen. And he closes the door, leaving them outside the trench.
Marcus once again picks up the over his shoulder throw bag that he usually carries, a gym bag basically. Looks at McGowan for a few moments and says, "You have a good evening."
Thank you. Charles just looks at him and waits for him to turn back to Charles.
He takes a few steps before he turns and heads away.
I am just going to look back from him and just outside of the trench, just look at him more, and then turn around and go back to my place.